The word enthuo, which is where our word enthusiasm comes from, talks about an energy of breath, breathing life into something, making it come alive. I know I use a lot of Bible analogies, but there's the story of the Garden of Eden where God takes and creates man out of the dust of the ground. So he takes up all this dirt, forms this individual, and then it says he breathes into him the breath of life. Breathes in other words, he came alive once that breath of life was breathed into him. Same thing. That's enthuso. That's the enthusiasm. That's the effect of it. It is the breathing of life into our situations, the breathing of life into the things that we are connected to. Nobody is without connection. Now, you can do your best to get off the grid and go live out in the furthest reaches of, the Adirondacks or the Great White North or what have you, and get completely away from civilization. But guess what? You're still connected. You're connected to where you are. You're connected to your way of life. You're connected to your environment. You can't escape connection. You are always going to have some degree of relationship to something in your life. Now, for the most of us, we're not trying to necessarily get off the grid. So we've got to get in our car every day and go to work. And so we're engaged in traffic. We're engaged in the workplace. We're engaged when we go to eat. When we come home, we have our family, we have our spouses or our kids or boyfriends, whatever it may be. We are engaged in something. We are always connected to something. So it's a question then of the level of engagement that you're in. How engaged are you in your life? Now, people, when they ask me for, hey, do you have any tips about this or that? Sometimes it's like they're looking for a secret or they're looking for a shortcut. Maybe there's something that they missed. And sure, man, there's some methods to doing things. There's some principles that you can apply that maybe you haven't thought of before. But the reality is when you're dealing, especially with something like becoming more engaged or enthusiastic about your life, well, you have to do some things when you don't feel like doing them. But the only way you're going to be able to get yourself to do what you need to do when you don't feel like doing it is making sure that you come in armed with reasons. Armed with reasons. In other words, why are you doing what you're doing? And you may feel somewhat checked out, for example, of the relationship that you're in, but there was a reason you got into that relationship to begin with. And sure, there's a lot of water under the bridge. I get that. I understand it. But are you willing to give it all up? Because what's easy to do is to just maintain, right? That other person is not throwing a fit, or maybe they ask you every now and again, hey, let's go out. Hey, let's talk. And you may do a little bit and then you get out of it and you're just trying to skirt. You're putting a lot of effort into just getting by. You're not going to get too engaged because you're not interested and what have you. And you're just doing just enough to get by. Amazing how much motivation we have and how much effort we'll put into just to get by. Well, again, you got into that relationship for a reason. Something got you into it. There was interest. There was enjoyment. There was passion. Can it be rekindled again? We say, oh, well, man, we've become different people. We both put on so much weight, or attitudes have changed, kids have changed things, we're under a lot of financial strain or what have you. Yep, those are all setbacks, those are all obstacles, but is there not a reason? That's the question. Is there not a reason? Because what you're telling me is that you're telling me the reasons not to do something instead of the reason to do something. That's easy for us to do. We can come up with all the reasoning in the world about why we're not doing what we're doing. But do those outweigh? Do those exceed the reason to do something? Is it okay with you that this other person in your life is wounded, is lost, is feeling neglected, is needing something from you, and you're not willing to give it? You're willing to give it to the baseball team that you're on. You're willing to give it to the lodge that you go to or what have you. But you don't want that person so close in your life. You're not sharing your thoughts with them. You're not sharing what's happening in your life with them. Why aren't you engaged? Why don't you enjoy it anymore? Again, you can give me all the reasons. You're not doing it. But do they exceed the reason why you should be doing it? I don't think so. Nothing ever exceeds the reason why we should be doing something. Nothing will exceed the reason why you should get healthy. Nothing should exceed the reason why you should be spending more time with your kids, should be spending more time with that loved one, should be getting more involved and engaged in work, even if you don't like your job. The reasons why you should is so much greater than the reasons why you're not. Can you dig that? I hope you can. This is CJ, the Metal Motivator, and remember, in whatever you do, don't suck metal up.